Hey, listeners. For some time, I've been following the disappearance of an autistic boy named Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He was last seen in Hendersonville, Tennessee. A national Amber Alert was issued February 26, 2024. Sebastian is a Caucasian, 16-year-old boy who is 5'5", 120 pounds. He has blondish brown hair and hazel brown eyes. Sebastian's case has captivated the attention of law enforcement authorities who have conducted an extensive investigation into his whereabouts. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to Sebastian's safe return. Dog the Bounty Hunter also joined the search and is offering a $250,000 reward as well for Sebastian's safe return and his abductor's conviction. If you have any information on Sebastian, please contact the Sumner County Sheriff's Office at 615-451-3838 or the TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND. To submit a tip online, you can go to tips.fbi.gov. Dog the Bounty Hunter's team is actively collaborating with confidential sources to pursue leads. You can also contact Dog the Bounty Hunter at 833-TELL-DOG or emailing mostwanted@manhunts.one. Let's bring home Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. Today on Sense of Soul, we have Masha Pavlova. Masha is a 3-time #1 international best-selling author. She is a coach and seeks to unite heart-centered individuals as well as organizations to create personal, professional, and social change, working locally while thinking globally. Masha has been on a journey of pain to purpose, but she is a true example of perseverance. She has rebuilt her dreams from the ground up. She has served as the founder of the 24-hour Pause for Peace, a worldwide concert uniting hearts, music, and love, guided by future generations. And she's been putting this together for years now, a big mission where like-minded, beautiful individuals come together for a day of peace in October 2025. She just landed her very first TED Talk, which you can listen to now, just released this past week. She is unmasking autism in adulthood, using her experience and her voice. This topic is super close to my heart as I have ADHD, several of my children do, and I have one on the spectrum. So I'm excited to have Masha with us today to talk about this very important subject that is not talked about enough. So Masha, thank you so much for joining me again today.
So interesting fact that I just recently learned is actually ADHD and autism overlap like 41% of symptoms.
For sure. And I think it's a different kind. I mean,
Yeah.
because I have very bad ADHD as well as my oldest daughter, but my third child definitely, he was diagnosed with both, but his ADHD is totally different than mine.
Yeah.
I would almost say that his ADHD is just part of something within that spectrum, but mine's like true ADHD. It's very difficult. But like so many things go through my brain. I could never do Jeopardy. Give me a minute. I can get the answer.
Mine is the opposite. So I learned that my brain works in like 93rd, 95th percentile of like the speed of it, which doesn't help because I mean the accuracy is somewhat there, but then it's like my brain just gets there and sometimes it gets to the wrong place or something else happens and it's just I process too fast and it's and then it
Oh,
creates anxiety and everything. And it's interesting, like before you have any of the like titles, it just feels like it's all in your head and there's something wrong with you. And then you learn what it is and you're like, that, I wish I had known that. And my gosh, can I just vent for a second because I'm so frustrated beyond like I don't understand. I don't understand this. So when you look up anything about autism, all of the research is from Great Britain. They are doing so many different movements and research and support and all of these things. In the United States, the information that you find is everything up until getting the diagnosis. No resources past that point, and everything that you read, it's talking about it like a disease. Like
Mm.
the language is completely different. And it's like I
Yeah.
know that last time we talked about language a lot, and it's one of those things. It's like we can't expect anything to change until the language around us changes, because if we're researching it like a disease or there's something wrong with you or this needs a
Right.
cure, it's like, no, my brain is wired differently. Like this is not the same thing. It's not
And that
a,
it's totally okay.
yeah, exactly. And it has superpowers. I have freaking superpowers. Thank you
Dude,
very
I
much.
absolutely. I mean, oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. I can relate. When I first discovered that I had ADHD, the perception I had of ADHD was some little boy jumping around, right? Like he's high on sugar, not listening to his parents, running around in circles. That was my idea of it. So I was like, I'm not like that. There's all these stigmas.
Yeah. I did a lot of like sitting within before I even started speaking it out loud. And then I spoke it out loud, did a preliminary with my therapist and got like 86%. And I'm like, oh, huh, interesting. So kind of started like took like 7 or 8 months to get in, to actually find somebody and get into a clinic that does actual diagnosis on adults. And I went to talk to my parents and my friends, and like the different levels of responses. My mom really, really tried. Like you can tell, like she became very quickly aware of the stigmas that were coming out of her mouth a little bit. And so I noticed her like really putting an effort to change her own language around it, which was really curious. But the first thing was really like, um, it's like, oh, what do you mean you? Like you? Like look at you. You're fine. Like thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you that I'm fine. I'm glad to know this. And my best friend was like, I love her to death. And anytime that there's something wrong, she like her love response is getting angry. So she gets
Mm.
upset for you, but that's also sometimes stressful. But she's like, oh, well, at first she was trying to fight me on the fact that I have it. And then she said, oh, well, I guess I understand. They just give that diagnosis to everyone nowadays. And I'm like,
Wow. They don't to adults. I must tell you. So I have a friend. She's pretty sure that she is on the spectrum as well. She does know that she has ADHD. I want to say they didn't even have anybody within her insurance group that even did a diagnosis. And it was extremely expensive if she went outside of that.
yeah. You know the interesting thing too. It's the weirdest thing because I feel like this is gonna come off kind of strange. Like it has the same framework as the Me Too movement, in the sense that it's one of those things that I feel like a lot of us have held onto and kind of hid and self-isolated because we felt that it was something that was, not going to be
Wrong.
accepted and
Yeah,
wrong.
or something wrong with us. Right.
Yes. And then as soon as people started opening up and talking about their experience, it was like, oh no, here are all of these like overwhelming amount of people that have the same experience. And similarly with this, I don't know if this has maybe been your experience as well, talking about ADHD and so talking about, some of the experiences of that. And I cannot tell you how many people are like, oh my gosh, I can actually really relate to that. Diagnosis or not, the elements are there. And it's interesting to me. And I think a lot of it is maybe human nature and that gets just exaggerated through the different functions of the brain, maybe. I'm not sure, or how we adapt to things. But it's curious to me that so many people can relate to the experiences of it.
Well, when you think about all the great minds in the world, most of them were on the spectrum. That's another
Mhm.
thing I find is very interesting. They have more of an inner landscape than they do an outer landscape, which
Yeah.
has been judged by the world that says something wrong with that. Even I have a child who, if you want to call her quote unquote an introvert, right? Her world is felt very much an inward, and she doesn't care to entertain the outside world. Is that wrong? I remember one of her teachers one time saying, how about her go to a homework club? And I said, oh, is she not doing well in school? Because she's also very smart. She goes, no, she's doing well, just for social. Like, you want to punish her and make her stay after school and go work more because she doesn't want to stand up in front of the class and scream, look at me? And
Yeah,
actually, my daughter's smart enough to also have said, why is she not comfortable with who I am?
brilliant. And I think that these conversations is what kind of really drives the openness too. It's giving people permission. And I don't know, right? Maybe there's also, I mean, there's a lot of influence, of course, from the outside world, but to me that also says that she grew up around you and around people who are open to having that conversation, who feel safe to say, hey, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't feel right. Something is off here. I didn't have that. And so for me, my whole experience of my life, I'm kind of unfolding, going, oh my gosh, all of this is here, is this idea of masking because without that, I would not have been okay or safe. It was not safe to be something other than the expectation that was had at the time. Coming from a Soviet family, it was very like, it was strict. It was, I think my parents maybe were less strict than others, perhaps, but they were very, very strict. They had expectations for, a certain way that education looked, a certain way that homework looked.
I
Like,
don't agree with homework, by the way.
yeah, no,
Not at all.
nope. Oh my gosh, so much anxiety from that. And
Yeah,
that's the
I
thing.
know, right? You have PTSD bringing it up years later.
Thank you. And so much anxiety. It's like, what does that actually teach us? And in practice is important, but give me practice in a way that A, I understand and B, I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I understand being able to, okay, saying, well, we need to standardize this, we need to have something that can be taught. But I feel like, I don't know, there's something that needs to give there. Just it's not working. It's not working in a way that's producing adults that can feel like they can be open, which then limits us. It limits us so much and then creates just so much unnecessary stress and anxiety and overwhelm, and then that creates other problems.
I knew something was up with my son Ethan by the newborn. He
Yeah,
was my third child. So like I knew what to expect. And there's those milestones, right?
yeah,
But at first, you think, well, we'll just wait till they catch up, or we'll just wait till they do the norm, right? To those milestones. And I was not awakened back then, for sure. I remember other people, especially my older generation, was like, there is nothing wrong with him. Absolutely nothing wrong with him. And yes, I look at it now and I don't feel like there's anything wrong, quote unquote, with him. But had I not gotten him the support that he needed from the beginning, and we're talking things that actually could help all children, like how to play. Like instead of having a ginormous toy box full of stuff that when he would look at it, it would be way too overwhelming. You couldn't learn that way. If we separated every toy by like all the cars here, all the blocks, they're building stuff, all of the arts, and only pulled out for him one thing that he could accomplish and focus on and do. He was very successful. So literally, he just learned differently. There was nothing wrong with him. He
yeah.
just learned differently in his own unique way. And I wish I would have done that for all of my kids because you never get to see the toys at the bottom of the box
That's right.
or you never play with the toy properly, its purpose and how it's supposed to help with motor skills or whatever, just because, it's thrown in a box with everything else. So it was actually amazing, what I learned as a mother, how to move with him in the direction rather than forcing like I did with my other two. Like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go to this. You're going to do, you're going to learn this and you're going to be a baseball player. You're going to be a dancer.
Yeah.
People who are on the spectrum are unique, I feel, in that way because they can't be molded necessarily in the way that society would like them to.
Yeah. Just doesn't work. We can fake it very well. We can force ourselves
Try.
into the box, but it doesn't last. We're miserable. We make other people miserable. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't stick. And if it does, like I've been the master of masking and hiding behind things and
Mhm.
saying, oh, well, I can just push through this. That's fine. But then the amount of
Mhm.
turmoil and like energetic drain that that creates. It's like, well, all of a sudden, why do I have these extreme mood swings? Why am I always anxious? Why am I then that starts bleeding into the quality of work or the quality of how I show up with people I care about. And
Mm.
it's like, well, why is all that there? Oh, well, of course it's all there.
Right.
What else would you expect? Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
You know, Ethan was like that too. And I would always have to warn his teachers because the first half of the school year, they'd be like, "Do you understand this?" He'd be like, "Yes, I totally understand this. Yes." But he didn't. But he wanted to fit in. And so we noticed from a young age, actually, this because I was like, "No, he doesn't. He never understood this." That's why he never, would do it. It wasn't a lack of him not trying or a lack of interest in doing it. I'm sure it stressed him out very much, but he couldn't do it. And he didn't want to admit that he didn't. So once I caught on to that, that was like the first thing I'd tell the teachers. He's really good at pretending he's got it. He understands it.
One of the reasons I even started talking about this, to be honest, because at first I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm not ready, I need to process this myself. And I was getting a haircut. The TEDx edition, by the way, I'm making this all about the haircut because that was just like absurdly like that moved me beyond anything I could even express. I was sitting in a chair and my hairdresser has known me for, like I've been seeing her for 15 years because prior to that I would cry literally every single time somebody gave me a haircut. It was traumatic every time. To my parents, I'm like, did you guys not know? Like, why did nobody notice any of this? Like all of these signs were there. Why did nobody people not pay attention? Did they not look for it? Like what happened?
Yeah.
But I was sitting in her chair and she's used to my crazy stories. You know how I have all the things going on always and just these extraordinary things going in this happening and all these updates. So I always, have something to share. So she's kind of used to that at this point. And I shared this part. I'm like, I actually just got this diagnosis. And I was explaining something about it, and she stopped everything as she was doing and like leaned over my chair and like just it was extraordinary to see because everything else kind of just disappeared and she was just tuned in 100%. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, can you tell me more about the sensory experience?" And I told her a little bit more about that, and she goes, "So my son," she said, "he's a little bit older, but when he was a baby, he was having a really hard time with certain fabrics. He was having a very hard time with touch. He was having a hard time wearing certain clothes." And she said at the time, his doctor gave us some brushes to use to
Mhm.
get him used to those things.
Yeah. Ethan had those.
Yeah. And she said, I kind of forgot about them and I thought he got over it. But now that you're telling me this and I'm thinking about it, and he only wears his favorite sweaters, he actually avoids certain clothes still.
Hmm.
I think he was over it, but I think he's just masking. And for us on the other side of it, it's so easy to, because we have an expectation of how the world should look. And so
Right.
we're constantly seeking to see it that way. And
Right.
so it's easier for us to just accept, oh yeah, they just grew out of that. That was just a phase. Or, oh, this is just a kid's thing. This is just a no, like look past that for a second. Take the time to look at this and see it. It's not laziness. It's not choosing not to do this. That's the other thing is I think there's a feeling of, well, I'm choosing to do this or I have a choice in not doing this. And it's
Right.
not the case. It's like an on and off switch. It's a dial. People said,
Yeah.
oh, my whole life in education, it sounds like maybe your son has similar experiences with this where people are like, oh, well, try harder.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What do you mean try harder? I'm either doing it, and when I'm doing it, I'm giving it my all, or I'm not doing it. What do you
Hmm.
mean try harder? Like I don't understand. What do you mean? I just wish more people would hear and understand and see this.
Absolutely. Masha, it's like if you haven't been exposed to it, I mean, like I hadn't at the very beginning. I didn't know what to look for, kind of like your hairdresser. Sure, I thought this, but I thought, well, we'll grow out of that or whatever. But it's processing. I think that's often, whether it's processing, what you're wearing before he eats, he smells his food. How brilliant is that? That's something that naturally happens to us. Before we put our food in our mouth, we're going to smell it. The whole thing is going to happen, and it happens naturally for us. But for him, he learned that it wasn't happening, so he learned to smell it. That's brilliant, actually. So the things that he's learned on his own just to survive and be in this world as it is genius. I don't like the word special needs. I really don't. I call them special souls. And actually, I think I'm thinking about people who are a little bit more disabled, like can't speak or can't take care of themselves. My oldest son, he helped take care of a child he's not a child anymore, he's an adult who has Down syndrome. He can't talk. He's very low on that spectrum. And my son would go in and watch him and he took care of him and he was his like para, at school, his assistant. And he even played basketball. So cute. I have so many amazing, beautiful pictures. My son took him to a dance one time. That kid, what he did to my oldest son's life, it's like he lit him up. He lit him up. Even though they couldn't speak to each other, they had a relationship that was so deep, pure love, pure love. So I start calling them special souls because, like that child, his name is Caden, he has hardly any ego. On our spiritual journey, we're trying to shed our ego. And that's one thing that most people who are on the spectrum, Down syndrome, or whatever challenge they have, they're blessed with that less ego. Most of what they are challenged by or struggling with is their senses. What I see as hyper empaths. They're so sensitive and they have such little ego. I think the more struggle they have, I feel like they're like angels on earth because you go and you meet their family. I mean, they're totally different because of that child. That child has blessed their lives, has turned them into compassionate humans, patient, and the challenges that they face, that they get through every day to still be able to smile. Like some of them have great challenges.
I've noticed that too. It's interesting. I have so many curiosities about how all of that works because like it is a spectrum, right? So there's this whole path to it, and something about how people are built differently, and at the same time, to your point, interact with the outside world, like that, how
Mm,
that's shown and where that's created. One of the things that's been coming up a lot too is one of the first things that my mom said as she was kind of starting to accept this. What she went down this whole list of like, at first she started talking about how there's things that she remembered from childhood, and then she started talking about, well, that's not our
uh,
fault. That's our fault. So there's like this idea of there's something
oh,
external that caused this, and I'm like, that's not quite how that works. There is a formation of that interaction and how that can go and how that can shape both, the individual and the people around them. But it was just so fascinating.
mhm.
And here it's almost the same conversation in the reverse of the beauty of what it can look like in a positive interaction and in the effect of how it impacts the people around them that are maybe neurotypical or more neurotypical. It's so fascinating. And I wish people would ask these questions more often. I wish people would approach this with curiosity. I wish that people would seek this out and these interactions out to see what happens because I think it's magic. I think it's just pure magic. And interestingly enough, my partner way back when used to be a leader on the ground here for the Down Syndrome Society. So they actually opened the center here locally. And I was just thinking, if your son is interested in that kind of work and if that inspires him, if that lights him up, maybe that's something to look into and maybe go in and see if there are any opportunities of either volunteering or some kind of participation, or if he's into leadership, stepping into one of those roles. If it's at all helpful for him to talk to my partner and hear his experience of that work might be interesting.
You should. Because he was so good at it. Because my son has such a kind heart, my oldest son. So he was an assistant teacher there. And then also coached them in basketball and football.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
I mean, they had so much fun. I have some of the best stories around that time when they were all playing sports together. Ethan had never been a part of anything like that before. but his siblings were super into sports and super involved. So this gave them an opportunity to be a part of something. It was so damn sweet. When you're able to connect with someone who can't speak, if you can connect with them on a soul level, you know what? Someone once told me this, and maybe we even talked about this once, that if you're looking to find purpose, like what moves you? What makes you cry? That's where you need to be in your life,
That's beautiful.
right? Isn't
Yeah.
it true
Yeah.
though? A lot of times we're thinking opposite. We're thinking, what's going to make us more money? What's going to make us, what brings you to tears in your life because you are so passionate about it.
Yeah. It's like there's a call in your heart for it, there's a call in your soul for it that I recognize. It's not a logical thing. It's not a based on reason or the market or anything like that. It's like, no, this is what you respond to on the soul level. And
Yeah,
it's everything. It's everything. Yeah.
right. It's meaningful. That's the meaning of life. That's the purpose, right? If you can connect with that.
Yeah. And if I may add, one thing that's just been a huge discovery too, it's not just the tears. I've actually noticed like, what are the things that give you frustration? What are the things that truly stir up your emotions that you're watching and you're going,
Yeah,
like, I am frustrated this, I'm upset by this, or I'm saddened by this, or, I get really excited
right,
when, those are the signs because it's that emotional response that is deeper than just your thoughts. That's deeper than just, your logical understanding of things. And it's something
right,
that I think a lot of people when they're talking about that purpose, what you just mentioned about that, it's like just look at the path of the big emotions that you've had and what were they linked to? What were they caused by? What were they in response to?
right.
And follow that. What I can tell you from my experience, which is, everybody has their own. My parents were very much like the opposite from you. They kind of kicked me out when I was 18 or 19. I don't remember. They're like, yeah, you're done. You're out. Like out of the house, out of, you're an adult now, go figure it out. And so it was kind of on my own. And I was, there was huh, like that's a block I haven't run into in a while. There was an experience, there was an experience in the childhood, and then there's an experience at the age of 18 of having been sexually assaulted. So things happened. A lot of things happened. There was a lot of challenges with relationships, actually, my whole life. And so at the same time, what I can tell you, moving past all of those things, is at the end of the day, I figured it out. At the end of the day, the experiences that I had were, I think, mine to have one way, shape, or form, and they helped create the person I am today, who's able to persevere and do the things that I'm doing. So even though if you could think of it from a like if I could have a bird's eye view and step into my mom's shoes and say, if she could have predicted that's would have happened, right? She doesn't know some of these things. I never told her because I didn't want her to take it on as her own or put fault on herself for it, right?
Yeah,
But let's say she knew, I don't know that that would have changed anything because if she would have kept me safe, I think I would have still found I still needed to have some experiences. I needed to go out there and understand for myself. And naive is an interesting word because it's something that has been used so often for me my whole life. And even today, I think people who really know me, like my family has given up on that word. But there was this idea of naivety due to either lack of experience, lack of understanding, seeing, oh my gosh, the what did my parents used to say, like seeing the world through the pink lenses, things like that. And to be
yeah,
100% honest with you, and I don't know that I could have told you this as a younger person. That was a choice. Always, 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 always. Like the things that I've gone through,
Mhm.
like I have
Wow.
severe PTSD since I was 7 to 10 was a time that I had some of those things that came up, right? And I've had a lot of experiences since of different things that have gone not ideally, that have traumatized, that have created problems. So the idea of lack of experience doesn't apply. Lack of negative experience does not apply. And yet there's an
Yeah.
internal compass that tells me that I will be choosing to see the world differently. I will choose to see people as good. I will choose to give people the benefit of the doubt. I will choose to approach things as if they were the ideal in my mind. And now there's almost a driver to build that reality because I see it, use it
Mm.
as an inspiration. So
Right.
at this point, I'm not so much afraid of those experiences because I know I can live through them. And so that way I can say, okay, so that didn't work, but I still see this vision of what I want to see in people. So how can I create that as a reality for myself and others and teach others how to do the same thing so that I'm not running into those horrible experiences that I had to go through. But it's not, for me at least, it wasn't naivety. It may have appeared that way, but again, it was a choice to see things differently and believe something different. I
Mm.
saw it. I saw it. I saw it in my heart. I saw it regardless of the things I maybe at the moment didn't quite match. But because of that, today I'm able to do the things that I'm doing and be in the places that I am and be around the people that I'm surrounded by. Tell me that that would be the case, 10, 15 years ago in my 20s and before that, I would have called you crazy. I'd be like, yeah, there was a hope for that, but there's not a feeling of this could ever be my reality. But if there's a desire to create that, and
You
it
know,
taught me to do that.
I think you're right. But the thing, so, and that's the thing too with the spectrum, there's so many different levels of that.
Yeah.
But I would say that like my son's is in a place where it's dangerous. There's this trusting, which is so sad because I do believe that like he's wanting to see the good in the world, the good in people. Like he doesn't see anything else. He doesn't ever have that judgment on people. So very easily taken advantage of, or could be. However, when I think about all the things that he struggles with are actually not bad traits. Like my older children tell me all the time, I wish I was more like Ethan. I wish I didn't care what people thought about me. I wish I didn't care about what college I had to go to or how much money I had to make or where my place would be in the world. I wish I didn't care at all. Like he doesn't. He just is. He's very present. He doesn't have that judging so much. He might judge a football team or something like that, but just to meet somebody and judge them. So being naive in many ways, it's not naive. It's not a bad thing. It's a simple way of seeing the world instead of all of the labels and all of, the things that now, unfortunately, because people are not so good that we have to be cautious of.
That's really beautiful, actually. So the curiosity then is, what is the balance? Because the balance is what comes to mind. Because on the one hand, you know, we do want to protect. We do want to understand how to create. It's not even protect so much as creating a container that maybe fill some of the gaps that we are seeing, right? So we're seeing there's a gap in this judgment, in this opportunity to at least to the safety line, right?
Yeah.
Just made me think of a pool, right? You have that, the line that says, hey, past this point, you won't be able to stand anymore, you know? And
Mhm.
to not have that is dangerous because if you don't have that line, if you don't have perception, and if you can't swim, well, you're not gonna do very well there, right? And so what is the balance between that, but then at the same time, being able to have there be a process where the individual can start identifying that and being able to adapt that perception as their own, not necessarily that everything is dangerous, but something that's closer, something that says here's what to look for, when here's how to identify
Yeah.
this, here are
Right.
some of the markers that you might not naturally be able to see but can still learn
Mhm.
and adapt as your own to be able to have that judgment, to be able to make your own, to be able to exercise your own agency in the
Which we all have to do, whether you're on the spectrum or not.
Precisely.
That's my
Precisely.
point about all of this, is that we are so trying to teach the world to be this American. It doesn't fit for everyone. And now you have 1 in 22 children who are on the spectrum. That's not including all the people who are just ADHD and all the other things, dyslexia. There's so many things. So maybe stop trying to just teach this norm over here because it's no longer the norm. It's no longer the norm. You're leaving out an entire population,
Yeah.
which everyone, like you said, has a gift, if not a superpower. I believe that too.
Absolutely. And there's nothing to change or fix. It's not
Nope.
like whether you acknowledge it or address it or understand it, it doesn't
Nope.
make it go away. It's there. It's apparent. And this is the other thing is, and we think it's just a brand new thing. So we're trying to look for, causes that,
Right.
just now
Just
and
because
saying,
they're
oh,
naming it now. Right.
exactly, right, right. And it's with it, how many adults, one thing that blew my mind is blew my mind. Shanna, like this is something that tell me if this makes sense to you. So I was digging around for statistics for the TEDx talk, right?
Hmm.
And I was looking at, I'm like, okay, I want to understand how many people are thought to have autism that, or actually I was looking for the statistics for how many adults get
Oh, yeah.
diagnosed and how those numbers have shifted and changed.
Hmm.
And what I found is that they say, okay, so the ratio of women to men that
Okay.
are believed to have
Right.
autism,
Yeah. Even children, in children, right? Get
yes,
diagnosed as much.
it's not even, I mean, that is huge, but the gap of the unknown, the ratios range between 2 to 1, meaning 2 women for every 1 man, to
Wow.
16 to 1.
What? Give me that whole statistic again. One more time, because I'm
So
blown away. What?
the range is for women to men and adults is 2 to 1, which is 2 women to 1 man,
Okay.
to 16 to 1, which is 16 to women to 1 man. I did the math on that. So according to the CDC, if we're looking at the number of men that got diagnosed with autism and we apply those statistics, the 2 to 1 to 16 to 1, that gap is almost 2 million women in the unknown. And we don't even know. And they're masking. And it's like, well, it could be anywhere between, 0 to 2 million, somewhere in there is right.
Because theirs isn't as obvious usually, from what I
Absolutely.
understand.
Absolutely.
However, my youngest is on a 504, and I went and fought for that for her because she doesn't advocate for herself, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
She's even put herself in danger by not asking for water, stuff like that. Or she won't turn in things. If that time has passed and she wasn't there, she won't turn it in because she can't go up and do that afterwards.
Yeah.
There's certain things. And so I'm like, I know that she can be a successful student. So these accommodations need to be made for her to be. But she's not unique in this, Masha. Every kid in that class could get on a 504 if they wanted to. 1 in 2 kids have anxiety since I think it was 2020. 1 in 2. 1 in 22 diagnosed with autism. God knows how many were also, we're talking like, what's the norm here then?
Exactly. We're talking about as neurodivergent versus neurotypical, and it's like, well, what is neurotypical even, right? What does that mean? And the systems is what needs to change, not the people. Like we're
Thank
trying to do
you.
one thing.
Amen. And you know what I have suggested? Because they still have homework at my kids' school. If every single kid would go get a 504, what would they have to do? Because now every kid has individual accommodations. The system has to change. It is a broken system that's trying to put everyone in a box. It's not us. It's not humanity. It's
Okay.
also environmentally, because my daughter had 18 places that were highly lead in the water fountains, high levels of lead. So it's in our environment, it's in our water, it's in the things that we eat.
Absolutely. And I think it goes past even America. I think
Oh,
it looks
true.
maybe different in America, but I think it's a world challenge. I know that there are a lot of innovations around school systems and education, here's my call out to anybody, really anybody. I want us to step away from having this us and them and putting the responsibility on others, because I'm in my mind, I'm always like, well, what can I do? What can I really do? Because individuals are powerful. And it's when we give that power away, when we say, oh, well, somebody else has to fix it, like, no, stop it. Like, what can we do? Because I think if enough people start saying this isn't right, or if enough people start looking for solutions, let's say you're not a leader, or let's say you're not a researcher, let's say you're not a whatever you think is needed for this solution, what part do you have? Who do you know? What can you accomplish? And not necessarily by, maybe the system, maybe expecting the system to just change overnight is maybe unrealistic, or maybe it's not. But little things, what are the little everyday things that can happen that
Right.
can start shifting the world around you?
We're all unique souls. This is just a meat suit. And I just respect you so much for one, seeking answers and being curious and allowing this to come forth. I think it'll be a blessing in your life. And I think that you will bless other people because of it.
I hope so. I hope so. I thinking like the meat suit component, right? It's I think I wish people would understand and see past their own perceptions of what they're seeing on the outside, because you never know, right?
Never.
The closest people to me never knew. They didn't know, like,
Maybe they did. They just didn't know what it was.
yeah,
And, maybe they chalked it off for this or that, or maybe they even saw some of it in them.
that could be true too, right?
Because I tell you what, me and my older kids have all sat around and said, I think I'm autistic. I think I'm on the spectrum. I do that too. We can all find similarities in all of these things. We're all humans.
Yeah, yeah. And if we come to things with that perception, with that curiosity, with that, seeking the mirroring inside ourselves, I think that the world could be a lot kinder, and we would erase some of the expectations that we have, and associations with our own perceptions of people. Well, this person is smiling, so therefore they're happy. This person is quiet, so therefore, they're shy, or or this person is angry, therefore it
Like
has
it's
something to do with
wrong,
me, or it's
right?
wrong. Yeah.
Something's wrong,
And it's like, you never know. Like, you never know, right? It's
right?
have kindness, have compassion, have patience, have, that you would want yourself, that maybe you're not even giving yourself. Be that for yourself first, and then start seeing that in others. Start seeing past what your first initial perception of something is, and be curious.
Amen to that.
And being okay with that part looking different. It gets to look different, and that's part of, we wouldn't have any of the the inventions, the some of the great, I mean, businesses, companies, I mean, those are some of the most brilliant minds, and they are different. They are different. Looking through history, looking through everything, I mean, we can, some people actually had the diagnosis, some people we can look into, and there's a lot of
Right, you
discussion.
can tell.
You can tell, you can absolutely tell. And again, it's thinking about, how does the system support that, and how do we as individuals do that? How, what is one thing you can do? What is something that you can shift in yourself and in interactions to see that, to be able to understand. And I think there's I think when other, and we know this, right? We know this on some level, where when some senses are dimmed, let's call it, other senses are brighter, right?
Mm,
There's that balance. There's not I think oftentimes we think there's an imbalance. I don't think it's an imbalance. I think it's just less of one and more of the others, which allows us to be more connected spiritually, more open, more aware of things. And
yeah.
that's a commonality that I keep seeing and hearing about over and over again. If we can create a world that can be open to experiencing everything around us through that lens, how
Yeah.
much more can we gain? I think that's what happened with your son, right? He was open enough to seeing through the lens of this boy, and he saw it. He
Yeah.
experienced it as much as he could, because it's something that can be shared. It's not something that's a unique gift for any one individual because it's something that radiates from
It
us.
radiates. And I'm serious, the more challenged they are, I swear, the more impactful they have on this earth. I know that that sounds like opposite, but it's 100% true.
It's the polarity. It makes all the sense in the world that polarity exists. And the further we know this, one of my biggest mentors, he talked about this in love, right? The more you love, the more you grieve, right? It's the
Mhm.
same concept. It's
That's
that
right.
polarity of life. You have that, if you're in the center, you're going to think about physics, right? If you have that, those, what is that? That's like swinging, the little balls that let go and it goes on the other side. I don't know what the name for that is, but
Oh, the pendulum
yeah, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing?
Like a pendulum,
Yeah.
but the ones where you have multiple balls and you kind of
Right. Yeah.
energy through.
Yep.
It's like that, right? The higher one goes, the higher the one on the other side goes.
Hmm.
Simple. It's physics. It's energy. It's the same.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your thoughts that like what's the most important thing you feel so far since this journey is still new for you? What do you think is like your biggest message that you want people to know right now?
And I think this is because it's very new, one of the most painful and at the same time beautiful things is asking all of the what ifs, right? The what if this had been different? And when those questions come up, instead of just putting it in the past and saying, well, this is just about me and my journey and me as a child not having these things or having something else that wasn't ideal or that could have been different, I'm applying it to the world today. So I wonder if I guess it goes back to putting yourself in someone else's shoes and assuming,
Mm.
challenging your own assumptions, challenging your own belief systems,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Because the labels that got put on me, all of the what ifs I had is because of the labels that were put because of the expectations of society. And so if the people on the other side of this, if the people who are just going through life and let's say you experience something that, impacts you in any way, right? We're going back to the emotional reaction. If you're having an emotional reaction to something, being curious enough about it and putting yourself in the other person's shoes and asking what if, you know what if the
Absolutely.
story is different? What if I don't see everything? What else could it be? And it could be anything from, well, maybe this person's just having a hard day, or maybe this person is it ha has things that they're dealing with that I don't know about on a regular basis. I don't know. And because of that, if I ask them what if I put myself in their shoes, not only does that open my world, it puts me at peace because I'm no longer experiencing, that burst of emotions. And in that case, I could exchange that for compassion. That improves my world, but it also improves the
That's
world
right.
around me and opens the space for the people who are brilliant to shine and the people who are hurting to heal.
Absolutely.
That's the message.
It's beautiful. And it's like assume, like, don't make an ass out of you and me. Yeah, don't assume that this person doesn't have so much value in this world and can teach you something.
Yeah.
Well, most of us who are awakened, are more accepting of all the things that separate us because we're all one. I think you and I know that. We're all one. So, Neil Donald Walsh said it best.
But simply different individual expressions of the same single thing. So I've learned in my life, Shannon, that what I do for you, I do for me. And what I fail to do for you, I fail to do for me. Because there's only one of us here. It looks like there's two of us, but there's only one of us. Now, when I get that, when I speak to other people, when I interact with the neighbor across the street, much less the person across the pillow, with that understanding, with that awareness, oh, I see. I see. You're simply me looking a little different. We're all fingers on the same hand. We're individual. Each of our fingers looks different, functions differently, but they're not separate. They're all part of the same hand. We are all fingers on the hands of God. It's really quite simple.
I believe that very much. And I just wish that the system has to change altogether, not just the school system. The fact that, Elijah McClain here in Aurora, which I can barely talk about. He was just walking down the freaking street. He told those police officers that he loved them before, they killed him. Just things have to change on all levels because not everyone's the same.
And they get to change, and we get to change this. We get to change this. We get to see this look different and stop putting it on other generations. Stop saying, God, please, 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 for the love of all good, stop saying, well, we're not going to see this change in our lifetimes, but at least we're planting the seeds for the next generation. Too many people have said that for too many generations. This gets to change now, today. All of the parts are there. Everything is here. Everything. Everything. It just needs to be activated. We just need to believe it. We just need to step into it. We need to go in and seek out the people who are making this reality possible and join them. Yeah.
I agree. You're such a beautiful soul.
Thank you. Right back at you. Love you. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you're doing in the world.
Well, it makes me cry, so I must be doing something good. I must be right where I'm supposed to be.
Always. That's always true.
This is an important conversation.
Yeah.
This is something that is not talked a lot about. There's not a whole lot of people advocating. Because it's hard just for a mom to advocate for her one kid. There's no book for it. I mean, there's many books for it, but so every state does things differently. Yeah. There's no general thing. And I think it's because of the spectrum, because, of that distance between one side to the other. But I've had meetings with people and talk about this. It's very frustrating because I would have never known the things that I know to have done for Ethan as an adult if I didn't have just one person at a grocery store happen to mention a few things to me. There was no doctor, no education. Nobody was going to tell me these things. I don't know why. Maybe they don't know. They probably don't know. So I was really fortunate to run into this old friend from high school who said, make sure you get Ethan on a waiver at 12. You don't have that everywhere. Everywhere is different. There's not a lot out there on it, which I think is ridiculous when you have 1 in 22 children and you have many girls so overlooked as a child, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
The US just needs to catch up. This is an invitation for the United States and the rest of the world to catch up. Great Britain is doing great. They have some really
many other countries. Yeah, I've heard other countries too. Many. US needs to catch up because either they're going to be paying out the ass Social Security to the majority of Americans, or they can change their system, the school system, all the things, and catch up.
Yeah, we get to catch up.
Tell everybody where they could find you, your website, and talk about your beautiful peace movement.
So, my website, they can read all about it there as well. It's simpleconnectwithmasha.com. That's MASHA, connectwithmasha.com. We are after global peace, which might feel like a very, very far idea, but at the same time, if we work on the pieces of what that world looks like, we are basing it around youth and music. So that is something that has been proven to be very effective around the world. And so it's a 24-hour concert, every single time zone. And our goal is to have at least
It reminds me of a Woodstock.
Yep. So this is imagine, just nonstop 24 hours music, as well as stories from elders around the world. But the music itself is youth driven, having leadership from youth around the world. But we're truly going after 50% of the countries to participate in the musical piece, at least 75% of the world countries to sign a petition for a 24-hour ceasefire. So we're very, very excited about that work. And it's
what's the date again?
October 4th, 2025. Thank you so much. I appreciate you beyond anything I can express. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate you too. Sense of Soul. Thanks for listening to Sense of Soul podcast, and thanks to our special guest. If you want more of Sense of Soul, check out my website at senseofsoulpodcast.com.